Welcome to Widowed Too Soon. This is Michelle Bader Ebersole, but today we are starting the first in a new series called Out of the Fog and Into the Light, Rebuilding Your Life When Everything Changes. So, in the beginning, this little series is going to be right here on Widowed Too Soon as our second episode of the week. But in a few months, I will be launching a brand new podcast called Out of the Fog and Into the Light, Rebuilding Your Life When Everything Changes. And I'm going to tell you why I'm doing this, why I've decided to branch off. Nothing will change for Widowed Too Soon. We will still have awesome guests who are widowed. I'll still be talking to you about things I've been through and how to help you and be giving you tools and talking about the community and all of that good stuff. But this began stirring in my heart, let's see, a few months ago. I was kind of at a crossroads and I was like, do I stop my widow work? I have been widowed almost 6 years. I've been working with widows for about 5 years. Sometimes it's exhausting. Do I really want to do this? But after a lot of praying, thinking, a lot of huge things happening, including an amazing retreat, I decided that yes, I do want to continue widow work, but I want to add on. I want to be able to give widows and people who are not widowed a next step. So, what do I mean by that? So, what has happened in Widowed Too Soon, the podcast, is people stay for a year or two. That's about average time that people come and listen. And I get it. After a year or two, you're like, okay, I'm kind of like, okay, I don't need to keep. And if you've listened longer, great, awesome, glad you're here. But just from the statistics, some people have been like, okay, I'm done. I don't really want to hear widow stories anymore. Like, I want to know what's next. Like, I want to move forward. So, what is going to happen is we will continue to have the Widowed Too Soon podcasts with all the great stories from widows, how they got through it, all of that. But if you're like, I'm kind of done listening to that, then you'll want to tune into Out of the Fog and Into the Light, because that's where we're going to talk about strategies to rebuild your life. What do you do when you're kind of out of the fog? And I came up with that name because it's like, we have widow's fog. So it's like out of the fog and into the light, representing Jesus. Like, how do we get from out of the fog and into the light? And not just people with widow's fog, all kinds of grief that have fog. And it's not just people that have grief because of death. I'm going to interview people who've had to rebuild their life due to job loss, due to alcoholism, due to adultery, due to, a million different things. And what I see happening is it's twofold, really. I like saying twofold. Back in high school, we used to say it's threefold. I don't know, silly thing we did. Anyways, it's twofold. Really, it's giving that next step to you, my Widowed Too Soon audience. And then it's opening up my ministry to reach people who would never listen to a podcast called Widowed Too Soon because they're like, I'm not widowed. I can't relate. And so it's really going to be for anyone who says, hey, I need to rebuild my life. I want to hear some inspirational stories of people who have rebuilt their life. I want to hear some tips and it's just starting out, just like Widow Too Soon has morphed over the years and changed. I don't know exactly how this one is going to be, but I see it as me sharing stuff and then bringing in guests to share stuff as well. And so it's going to be a little bit of everything, but it's going to help you that are widowed to be like, okay, I don't want to live in the widow stories anymore. I want to talk about, how do I rebuild my life? How do I get out of the fog and into the light? So that's kind of how this podcast was born. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, when I was going to do it. So I'm going to be doing it as part of this podcast and then launching off into its own. So if you are listening to this in the future on Out of the Fog and Into the Light, and you want to know more about who is this host, I don't even know who this is. I am going to recommend that you go back to Widowed Too Soon episode 152 and 153 to learn more about who I am and what I've been through. But in a nutshell, I was widowed in 2020. My husband had a long battle with cancer, and God has helped me rebuild my life. That's the very short nutshell. Really, you can hear it all on Widowed Too Soon. But this one is going to be focusing on, okay, what did, you're widowed, Michelle, how did you rebuild your life? How did you do it? a lot of people don't see what we call the messy middle. I actually just posted this the other day. It was a picture of like my before of getting my hair done and then with all the foils in, like getting it done, highlighted, and then the after, and that we don't talk about the messy middle enough. And what people don't see is that messy middle in my life. Like I had the before, like, right when Luke died. And then I have the now when I'm in a good place. I'm, leading a widow's ministry. I'm remarried. There's a lot of good things going on, but they don't see the messy middle. And how did I get from point A to point B? And so this podcast is going to be focused on that. And how do you get from point A to point B? Whatever it is in your life that brought you to this place where you're rebuilding it, how do you do it? How do you take practical steps? I see me interviewing people with ministries, interviewing like steps in order to get there. Like I said, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I'm really excited about it. I think it brings in a whole new group of people who need support. I've been so laser focused on widows for 5 years, and I'm still going to be focused on widows with my retreats and with the Widow Too Soon podcast. But it's time to expand. I feel like it's time. It's time to grow bigger and reach more people. And so I'm very excited about the launch of this podcast. And so, what does it look like? What does it mean? Out of the fog and into the light. How do you get there? Well, I say it's one day at a time. It is not an overnight thing like I was talking about. It's definitely one day at a time. And you guys have probably heard me talk about this before if you're from Widow Too Soon. In the beginning, when you're in that deep fog, right? It's like every day is stormy and cloudy and I don't even see any sunshine and I am in the fog and I don't see the light. How do I get to that place in the light? Well, what happened for me is pressing into God. What does that mean? Like, that's such a Christianese phrase, pressing into God. But what it means to me is I would lay on the floor crying my eyes out and saying, God, help me. I cannot do anything without you. I literally can't. I have nothing. My husband is gone. Like, I don't know what to do. And every time, I'm not even joking, you would cover me with the peace that passes all understanding. Have you ever felt that before? If you haven't, I challenge you to lay on the floor and cry and give God every single piece of your heart and your mind and your soul and say, I can't do it without you. Please cover me with the peace that passes all understanding. So as I did that, right, the stormy days were still there, but I remember the day I saw a little sunshine peeking into my life. And I was like, whoa, there's laughter, there's smiling, there's good things ahead. And it gave me some hope. Like, what is life without hope, right? We need hope. And it gave me hope that in the future, I wouldn't always be this way. And as God healed my heart, there began to be more sunshine than clouds. And eventually I got to a place where I am today, where it is most days are sunny, but I still have the clouds that come in on my grief days, on my moments that I'm sad that Luke's not here for the kids. Just so many things I can have grief. But guess what? Those clouds, they stay 10 to 15 minutes. I'm not out for an entire day. It's not a stormy day all day, every day. And so I'm going to really dive in this series slash new podcast into what was it that brought me out of the fog and into the light? How did I get to where I am today? And I mean, it's crazy to look back on just being a brand new widow, barely surviving to this place that God has given me. It's not me. It's God. I'm not trying to be like, "Ooh, look at me," but just to show you like what God has done. There's now a huge ministry through my nonprofit Widow Goals, which is widows helping widows not only survive but thrive, to where we're doing huge retreats. We're doing meetups in like 30 cities. And hello, Australia is our new country that we just got. We are in Canada, US, Australia, which is very exciting. This podcast goes out to like, I don't know, 120 countries. People all over the world are reading my books. Like, the point of that is when you say, God, do what you want with my life. God, please make something beautiful out of all of this. Bring beauty from these ashes. He will. It's not going to look like the same way as me, as the next person next to you. God has an individual calling on your life. whatever you've been through, because this new series slash podcast is for people who've been through lots of things, whatever you've been through, know that God can use it. There is no pain wasted, that God can use it for his plan. I believe when we're born, God has put a calling on each of us. And sometimes it's the hard things that we go through that bring us to our calling. I never grew up saying, like, I want to grow up and be a widow influencer. First of all, there were no influencers back then, right? I had a Commodore 64. Okay. Do you guys know what that is? Like, it was like an old computer with like green writing, and if you want to play a game, you had to program it in. Well, there was a game Jumpman. I really liked that one. Anyways, there's no internet until I was in high school. And then it was like, dial up. There was no influence. Okay. My point is, I didn't grow up saying I wanted to work with widows. Okay. I wanted to be, let's see, I want to be a hairstylist for a while. And then I actually knew since a young age I wanted to be a teacher, and that's what I became. But then God took my life in lots of directions. But it's interesting that he used my desire to be a teacher in a different way, because now I teach people about grief and about widowhood and all kinds of topics. And so it was never what I dreamed of. But if I had not been widowed, I literally don't know where my life would be. I mean, I can think about it. I would maybe still be teaching, which, spoiler alert, I didn't really love being an elementary teacher. I mean, I love the kids. They're so sweet. I did not like classroom management. I did not like dealing with all the parents and report cards and staff meetings. Oh my goodness. And professional development days. And anyways, didn't love it. But it's interesting how God took what I have been through and my profession and everything, and the other thing, this is very interesting, and I've spoke on Widow Too Soon about this, but not on Out of the Fog, how I used to do network marketing, and I learned so much. I learned how to speak. I was in my 20s and I started speaking to groups. I had never done public speaking before that. In fact, I barely survived my public speaking in high school and college, those classes. I also learned how to get people together, how to gather people. Like, I didn't really like selling products. I love team meetings and team trips and team bonding nights and like all of that stuff. And God is using that now for me to gather widows. Like, it's crazy when I look at the skills God gave me, but I don't know where I would be. And so wherever you're in life, you might be in the point where you're just on the other side of something really big happening and you're in that brand new rebuilding phase, but God's going to help you figure out what that is. So I want you to take a look at your life right now and the skills that you do have, and just kind of inventory that. And you might not know what that means. I didn't know that I'd be a widow influencer, podcaster, all that stuff. In fact, if you would have said podcast to me when I was a kid, I would have been like, a what cast? Like, what? Or if you would have said TikTok, like the clock, like, I'm just thinking about what I would have thought in the past if you would have told me I'd be speaking to widows across the world. I'd be like, okay, aren't widows like 80? And how am I doing that? Am I traveling? Like, I wouldn't have known it. And so I believe that God reveals the plan for our lives day by day. It's not all at once. In fact, I was listening to an amazing Christine Kane podcast. Listen to her, please, if you don't. She's an amazing woman of God. And she was talking about her ministry, and it's grown really big and does really huge things, and how she didn't know in the beginning what it was going to be. Like, I didn't know what Widow Goals, my ministry, was going to be. I didn't know what the Widow Too Soon podcast was going to be when I started May of 2021. I had no clue where it was going to go, whose lives it was going to touch. And so you don't know right now. It's kind of exciting. I actually remember this point in my widow journey where I was like picturing a blank book, and I was like, my life is like a blank book. I mean, I have this chapter that's complete, but now I'm in this brand new chapter and I don't know what that's going to look like, but I could literally do anything. It was kind of like when you graduate high school and you're like, whoa, kind of scared because I don't know what I'm going to do. but kind of excited because I could literally do anything I want. And I want you to look at your life right now, even though it might be like, it's in shambles, it's broken. I want you to look at it and be like, God, please. Like, it makes me teary thinking about this. Like, take my broken pieces and make something beautiful. God, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know what it's going to be. It might be helping people who've been through what I've been through. It might be something totally different. God, show me piece by piece how you're going to rebuild my life. We did this really beautiful illustration at the very first Widow Goals retreat that we did. And it's beautiful. And it kind of illustrates this purpose, this point. So as the women were coming in, and they're all pretty new widows, I would say a toddler at that point. I think I was 3 years out. And we gave everyone these little flower pots with like paints and like markers and said, I want you to draw a picture of what your life looked like before you lost your spouse. Already tears, right? It's an emotional activity. Later on in the weekend, we came back and said, now I want you to break it. And it was an emotional thing. We all had to drop it. This is like the moment your life shattered. For this instance, it was the moment your spouse died. For whatever you're going through, it's the moment it all shattered. That was emotional. Then we came back at another point and we gave them these little coasters. And okay, let me back it up. We actually, as leaders, gave them these beautiful, beautiful pieces of glass, all different colors, turquoise, purple, pink, all the beautiful colors. And we said, your life is never going to look the same, but it can still be beautiful. And this is God handing you these beautiful pieces He's going to interweave into your life. And then we glued them all onto these beautiful coasters, which I still have. And you can see pieces of Luke's name. You can see my pictures of my kids, but interwoven are these beautiful glass pieces, which I now see as my ministry and the gifts that God's given me. You know, it's such an amazing thing when we can release where we've been and say, God, I love it. Thank you for where I've been, but I'm giving my future to you. I'm giving it to you. And God just wants a willing heart. That's what He wants from you. He wants a willing heart that as you're rebuilding your life, as He is helping you rebuild your life, that you are willing to do what He wants you to do. Now, your life, as far as your career and all that, it may look the same. Some people's careers don't change after they rebuild their life. It may look different. I just want you to be open to whatever God has for you. For some people, it's going back to school. Some people, it's starting a ministry. Some people, it's continuing in exactly what they've done. But I just want you to be open to whatever God may have for you, because it's kind of exciting, isn't it? Even here I am 5 years into my ministry. In May, it'll be 6 years since Luke died. And I've been doing this about 5 years. I was about 11 months in when I started my podcast and my TikTok and all that stuff. And, I gave it to Him not knowing like where it would go. And here I am. The point was, I'm still excited, getting back from this retreat that we did in Dallas was absolutely amazing, and seeing where God has taken us, and with the ministry and just my life. And then, watching the snowball effect, my daughter started a ministry for the kids of widows. And it's just been something completely beautiful to watch. Like, our lives, it's not just about our lives and rebuilding our lives. Our lives have a snowball effect. I have heard from more than one person, several people who have told me they thought of ending their life until they heard the podcast. And again, not to toot my own horn, that is about God. Like, God is using me as a vessel to reach these people, and He's going to do the same thing with your life. And so as we launch this new series / new podcast, I want you to be thinking about, what does it mean for you to rebuild your life? What does that look like? And you know what? I'm excited that some of you are going to end up being guests on this podcast, because you rebuilt your life and you're able to share it with us, share what God has done since you lost everything and what it looks like. And it's going to be a beautiful thing. And so that is the heart. This might be a shorter episode. This is like the heart behind this podcast, Out of the Fog and Into the Light, rebuilding your life when everything changes. That is the heart behind it. And you're going to hear, like I said, practical tools to help you get there. You're going to hear from people who've rebuilt their life, all walks of life are going to be sharing what they've been through and how God has helped them and how you too can rebuild your life and come out of the fog and into the light. So let me close by praying for you. God, I just thank you for every single listener of Out of the Fog and Into the Light. I just pray peace over them right now. Whatever they have been through, God, meet them in their tragedy, meet them in their pain, and give them the peace that passes all understanding. God, I just pray that they give their lives to you for the future, whatever you want to do through them. I pray over every one of these people that you do something big and amazing and beautiful that can point to you, that you're going to use their lives as they rebuild their lives. I pray that you give them step by step how to do it, what to do, give them what they need. And we just thank you for all of this. Amen. I was just thinking about the Israelites wandering through the desert and how God gave them manna. And manna, if you guys don't know, is it's kind of like a wafer, like some kind of food that they had that God would give them to sustain them. They had to take just what they needed for today. If they took too much, it would rot. And I think it said there was worms. Like it was just not good. If you took too little, you wouldn't survive. You needed only what you needed for today. And I feel like when you're rebuilding your life, sometimes it's in manna form. God's going to just give you what you need today. I actually wrote a book called My Manna for Today, and it's a place to record like what God did for me today. And I used to record it all the time. And I would pray every day, God, give me my manna for today. And that just meant something to help me get through the day. And when you start looking for it, you see it. I would say, somebody reached out to me, somebody remembered me, like something good happened. I'm going to ask you and challenge you to ask for your manna. Ask God to give you just what you need and to reveal in manna form, like your ministry, just what you need for today. And I'm so excited to hear all of your stories of how God helps you rebuild your life. I mean, this is just the beginning. This is episode 1, numero uno of Out of the Fog and Into the Light. Like, I'm so excited. This is totally God breathed. Like, He gave me this idea to continue working with widows, but add on to it. Like, I don't have to quit working with widows in order to build this new place for everyone who's coming out of the fog and into the light. So thank you for listening to my very first episode and for tuning in. And I'm so excited for what's to come. So love you all and have a wonderful day. I will talk to you next time.